This is a 2020 iPad Pro. It represents what the culmination of Apple's past 10 years in this market segment have resulted in, being the top of the line device in a very strange place in the market. Now, I haven't actually owned an Apple device in about the same amount of time, so it'll be an interesting time to look at a device like this and see how things have changed, or maybe they haven't. Before I get into the video, please like, dislike, comment, whatever. Just give me some feedback. I'd love to know how these videos are going and get to know what people would like to see from here in the future. So, thanks. I'd like to preface this. This is not a full-blown review on this device, because I don't think that as someone who is somewhat of an Apple rookie at this point, I don't feel qualified to review this product. But I would like to point out major pitfalls and various other things that I've noticed while using this device. This thing just breathes polish and, you know, it's a good-looking device. It's really thin, it's somewhat heavy, though that mostly just comes down to the battery itself, which, honestly, why didn't they make it a little thicker and a little heavier, get rid of this camera bump, and just make this thing last for days? That would be really cool. But I understand you have to keep it somewhat a reasonable weight and a reasonable thickness. So they made their choices. It is what it is, and it's fine. Now, it's been said 1,000 times before by other people, but as someone who mainly uses Android or Windows or whatever, how come we can't have good organization for our apps? It's just, yeah, I understand moving things around how you would prefer things. And you get folders! Yay, folders! But it's still just not customizable. I can't just go, hey, I have apps that I don't use that often, but I do need them available, so let's put them in alphabetical order. Things like that make a difference. And especially someone like me who has many tools on my phone that I'd also love to have on here that I may not use on a regular basis, but just having that organization that I know I can find this when I need it just would be a nice thing. I do like the speed of this device. Opening apps, and doing various things is all fairly snappy and very responsive. I needed to go all in on a device like this, so getting the right drawing app, getting the right app for anything that I'm doing, you know, I went in on it, so I picked up Procreate. The drawing experience on the iPad is alright. It's good, but something like this XP Pen tablet cost me $300 versus the $1,000 you could pay for something like that. This thing gets me that reliability. Each pen pressure stroke that I make, I know exactly what it's going to look like. And you don't quite get that with the Apple Pencil. That pressure reliability, knowing that it's going to be at the correct angle every time you put it down on the canvas. Those are things that I consider incredibly valuable, and a reason why I use a device like this. The iPad is a great option when you're on the go, but it's just when you're on the go. This sort of goes along the lines that I had as initial issues with the iPad, which is, where's that little bit of polish that makes this feel like a true commercial product rather than something that's being beta tested? This pen, this is the second generation of this pen. They've had chance to work out some of the kinks, but unfortunately, and I've confirmed this with other people, they have this glitch where the tilt sensitivity will often lock in a single position and you can't get it out of that lock for a few seconds. You can just be trying to draw like this and it'll sense that you're drawing with the full side, which It's not exactly something that you want when you're trying to quickly sketch something up, or just working in general. It's not exactly the most pleasant thing to happen. If you ignore the small bugs and stuff, apps like this are fantastic. I understand why they get the rave reviews that they do, but there could be more done. In general, there's small choices that Apple made, like with their notifications drawer. On the lock screen is a completely different notifications drawer than the one that you can manually pull down from here, which doesn't necessarily always reliably open up the way you want it to. And just doing something like swiping away apps, it just takes a little bit more effort than it really should. But the most frustrating part about it is that I can swipe away notifications and think that I've dismissed them, and yet they just show up back here. How come I have all my apps here in the settings app rather than having minimal settings here and settings that you can just directly access in those menus? Like, if I want to change how the Apple Pen interacts with Procreate, I have to go here. I don't get to just do small changes in Procreate itself, and having to completely exit out of one app just to change a setting for that app just breaks up your flow, and you don't get quite the experience that, at least what I was looking for as someone who cares very much about building momentum with my work. The biggest sin, which is why I left Apple in the first place, and unfortunately I still see it here, this thing isn't stable. I've had hard crashes practically on a weekly basis while using this device. I'll be just doing something like carrying this into the kitchen, and I just open up Safari to look up a recipe or something. Pink screen, black screen, Apple logo. And that just doesn't seem right. I've also had that happen where it just goes to a black screen when I unplug it from a charger, or I'm disconnecting it from the folio case. This thing is by far my favorite part of the whole package that Apple has put together. Yes, this thing is expensive. I think it's a little bit overpriced, especially when it doesn't include its own battery, but if you ignore that, this thing is awesome. You've got a secondary USB port, which means that you could actually theoretically use this as a dock rather than a case, which is actually how I mostly use it. This sits on my desk and acts as a secondary computer that I can just take on the go. This port just stays plugged in, so I can just charge it, never really have to think about it. And that's fantastic. The keyboard key switches are decent. Obviously no deck flex when you're this thin and there's nothing to give way. And the trackpad and the cursor implementation on iOS, all great stuff. Apple's put together a very premium feeling and operating set of devices with that case, this pen, and the iPad itself, but there's always that little quirk of a flaw that really prevents these devices being serious contenders for me for consistent use. And it comes down to issues like reliability that just make me disappointed. Here's the thing about this device. Samsung recently, in the past 6 months, put out a competing device that's just as premium. It comes with a pen, a case, and it's cheaper than the package that you get here. The only thing that is lacking on Android, at least if you're someone who's looking to be doing illustration and whatnot, is the software. You don't get Procreate, but you get Clip Studio and you get Krita. There's not really going to be space for a device like this, especially if this is your only device in the Apple ecosystem. Because this thing doesn't play nicely. with anything else unless you are in that Apple ecosystem. That's why this is an isolated device for me. Now, one thing before I finish this video that I need to point out is that Apple is absolutely not an ethical company, and if you have any sort of belief in human rights and buying products that represent your values, then you should stay far away from them as a brand. They have had historic issues where they continuously work with companies such as Foxconn that have ongoing issues with humans' rights, getting proper pay, proper working conditions, and not having things like suicide nets on the building because they need that. There are companies out there in the computing industry that do commit to trying to responsibly source parts and do things right. Take, for example, Intel. Since the past few generations, they have actually made a commitment to ethically source all of the silicon and try to manufacture as best they can. And that's something that I believe that Apple should be held accountable for. As one of the most valuable companies in the world right now, I think that they should respect the people that hold them up. Hey, thanks for watching. This is a little bit of a different format that I'm trying out. This is a little bit easier for me to edit and put together, as well as just sort of film, and I'm trying to experiment with a few different things here, so please leave a comment. Tell me how you feel about this format, and let me know how I'm doing. And if you really feel so inclined, like and subscribe. Really appreciate it. It would help me get this channel off the ground. So, thanks.